A question arises from a visit to the zoo.
Zoo. Carry on.
There we saw some gorillas. And, when they looked upon them, it was like looking upon a human being. Look into their eyes. It was like looking into the human eye.
Yes.
So it came to what kind of consciousness that is here and what kind of thought.
For all animals, for example.
Yeah. But maybe it was some different from other animals.
Good, okay.
Spørgsmålet drejer sig omkring dyrs bevidsthed. Så
Did they all understand the question?
Det var selvfølgelig en gentagelse af spørgsmålet fra i formiddag. Hans og Kirsten havde været til besøg i haven, hvor de havde set en gorilla. Og det de havde set var, at de ligesom kunne genkende en bevidsthed af den her gorillas omkring de syne. Der var noget, der lå ud over et almindeligt dyrs bevidsthed. Spørgsmålet går så ud på de forskellige bevidsthedsfag. Og om der er et eller andet skel, hvor man har svært ved at se, om bevidstheden er dyr eller det er menneske. Er det korrekt?
Good. Now, everything in existence has consciousness.
Alt som eksisterer har bevidsthed.
Even a stone has consciousness. Even the stable has consciousness. For example, you would find, scientists will tell you, that there are millions and billions of molecules swirling around in a stone.
Videnskaben fortæller jer, at der er billioner af molekyler, som bevæger sig rundt i en sten.
For example, if you put a stone outside for a few months, you'll find some changes in the stone.
Hvis man lægger en sten udenfor, så vil der over en måneds tid være sket forandringer i stenen.
And the changes does not only come about by the environment, but because of its own molecular structure.
Og man vil finde, at det ikke kun er
There are four main kingdoms existent as far as this planet Earth is concerned.
Når vi taler om jorden, så eksisterer der 4 forskellige riger.
Yeah. The stone falls under the mineral kingdom.
Stenen hører hjemme under mineral.
Then you have the plant kingdom. Fine. Now it has also been proven scientifically that the plant has feelings and emotions.
Det er også nu om dagen blevet videnskabeligt,
which is a higher development than the stone.
det er en højere udvikling end sten.
Now, at a laboratory, they had various plants in the lab,
På et laboratorium havde man forskellige planter,
and all the plants were wired up to a machine.
elektroder til en maskine.
And when the experimenter took his cigarette and burnt one plant,
Og eksperimentet gik ud på, at man tog en cigaret.
that agony of that one flower, one plant being burnt was felt by all the other plants.
Man kunne derefter måle, at den smerte, som den ene plante havde haft, blev optaget og blev registreret på alle de andre planter.
And that comes because the plant also has consciousness.
Og det kan kun få planter.
Like for example, you plant things, and if you treat the flowers very lovingly, then they grow better.
Vi planter blomster, Hvis I så er meget kærlige og omhyggelige med jeres planter, så trives de også bedre.
Or even vegetables for that matter. So, when a human being shows a deep love for a plant and the plant grows better, what does it mean?
Så når et menneske viser stor omsorg for sine planter, og at planten gror bedre, hvad betyder det så?
The human being has a more highly developed consciousness, while the plant has a much, much lower consciousness, yet there is a communication.
Mennesket har en langt højere bevidsthed end planten, som selvfølgelig står langt under, og dog er der alligevel en forbindelse.
So therefore it means that there is only one consciousness.
Det igen betyder, at der i virkeligheden kun eksisterer én bevidsthed.
Now from there we go to the animal kingdom. Dogs, cats, chimpanzees, gorillas.
Aber, chimpanser og gorillaer.
And they too have a consciousness. Because consciousness is all pervading. It is everywhere. And the effect upon one consciousness reverberates throughout the entirety of consciousness.
Fordi at en bevidsthed kan gennemtrænge resten af bevidstheden omkring i rummet.
If you stand on this side of the sea and you shake the water,
Her side af havet, og man forestiller sig, at man rystede vandet.
that very stirring of the water on this seashore will send its vibrations to the other seashore.
Så vil de vibrationer, der skabes på vores side af havet, blive følt på den anden side af havet.
And that is how consciousness works.
Og det er på den måde, bevidsthed arbejder.
Now, scientists are very busy trying to find the missing link.
Videnskaben har længe været optaget af at finde det, man kalder det manglende led.
They found the men that existed 50 million, 100 million years ago, the Neolithic man and others.
Mennesker, som eksisterede for 5-10 millioner år siden.
The Neolithic man, they call it. And then there's the Australopithec man, and quite a number of names that have been given. And they were found to exist over 50-60 million years ago.
En række navne, som disse skeletter, man har fundet, har fået over gennem de sidste 5-6.
Yeah, but they were lowly developed comparing to our standards.
Hvis man sammenligner det med vores standard.
So, the scientists are trying to find out how did the animal in evolution become a man?
Det videnskaben i øjeblikket det er, hvornår i dyrenes evolution er gået over til at blive mennesker.
But they will never discover that. Because the transformation from animal to man never happens on earth.
Grunden til, at de aldrig vil finde det manglende led er, at den transformation eller omdannelse, der sker fra dyrerige til menneskerige, ikke foregår her på jorden.
When it comes to highly developed animals like the chimpanzees, who are blood brothers of gorillas, cows, dogs, cats,
Når man tager forskellige dyr, som for eksempel chimpanser, som jo er blodbror til gorillaer, hunde og katte,
being highly developed, the transformation occurs on a different dimension beyond this world.
Disse dyr er højt udviklet, og deres næste skridt over i det nye rige foregår i en anden dimension.
What happens in the other dimension, that the highly developed animal also has a soul, and that soul there gets reborn in a human body.
Det, der sker, er, at det højt udviklede dyr går ind i en anden dimension, og da dyret også har en sjæl, så er det denne sjæl, som omdannes i denne dimension, som fødes som et menneske.
And to repeat again that the transformation into man will never happen on this planet, but on a different dimension.
For at sige det igen, for at gentage det, så vil fremskridtet fra dyr til menneske aldrig ske på denne jord, men det sker i en anden dimension.
Now, the only difference between an animal and a man is his thinking ability.
Den eneste forskel, der virkelig er mellem dyr og menneske, er evnen til at tænke.
Although the mind is universal, and even in the stone and the plant and the animal and in man,
Selvom sindet er universelt, så er der i mineralriget, i dyreriget og planteriget og i menneskeriget.
but the difference lies in that in the animal's brain, the cells are not enough developed for the consciousness of man to pour through.
Så er der, selvom sindet er universelt for alle disse riger, så er det alligevel ikke nok for dyret, for den har ikke bevidsthed, som kan skinne igennem sindet på samme måde som mennesker.
All of us has gone through those stages of mineral, plant, animal, until we have reached the stage of man.
Vi har alle sammen været igennem disse riger, mineralriget, planteriget, dyreriget, til vi nåede menneskeriget.
Now you'd find amongst animals that they could do things which man cannot do.
Finde, at dyrene ofte kan lave ting, som mennesket ikke kan.
For example, if a dog's master is coming home and is still 2-3 streets away, the dog would start running to the door that my master's coming.
At de til trods for, at deres herre befinder sig stadigvæk flere gader fra hjemmet, alligevel begynder den at løbe hen til døren.
You see, and what scientists they call it instinct,
Fornemmelse for et instinkt.
because it happens naturally without thinking. But in reality, it is a feeling or recognition by its consciousness.
Eller en genkendelse, der finder sted i dens bevidsthed.
You see, that is where science fails and the mystic succeeds.
Det er på dette område, hvor at videnskaben må give op, og hvor mystikeren vinder.
Because the mystic sees through things.
Fordi en mystiker kan se igennem tingene.
You can converse with an animal with a non-verbal language. I had one experience in the jungles of India when I was roaming around from guru to guru.
På det tidspunkt, hvor jeg søgte fra guru til guru, der havde jeg engang en oplevelse i Indiens jungle.
I told the story some years ago in England.
Jeg fortalte den her historie.
So here I was going through this jungle, and coming from the other side was a tiger.
Og ligesom jeg gik igennem junglen, så kom der fra den anden side en tiger.
A wild jungle beast.
Et vildt jungleuhyre.
So what I did, I just sat down.
Så hvad jeg gjorde, var, at jeg satte
And I combined my consciousness with his.
og jeg forbandt min bevidsthed med dyrets.
And the method was this, that at that moment, without any fear,
På det tidspunkt, uden nogen som helst frygt,
I put the thoughts that, look, you, Mr. Tiger, and I are one.
så sendte jeg den tanke frem, den bevidsthed frem, at hør lige en gang her tiger. Du og jeg, vi er jo et.
We are made of the same essence, which is consciousness.
Vi er skabt af den samme essens, som bevidsthed.
So the tiger started running nearer to me.
Jeg kom nærmere,
And when he was about as far as that wall there, he just stopped, turned around and went away.
så stoppede han, vendte om og gik bort.
You see the communication one could have. I give you an example of one of our meditators. Yeah, in Spain, he's a psychiatrist by profession,
I Spanien, han er jo et psykiater af profession.
and his name is Ramon Carballo Sanchez.
Og hans navn er
Sanchez. Right. One day he landed up in a field where there was a whole group of dogs trained to kill.
En dag gik han ud på nogle marker, hvor at der var nogle hunde, som gik rundt, og de var trænet til at dræbe.
And they were charging at him.
Og de begyndte at jage ham.
He had no gun or nothing like that.
Den slags.
So he tells us, and he said this in public meetings in Spain, that the only thing he could do
Så han fortalte os i fuld offentlighed i Spanien, at det eneste han kunne gøre,
that the only thing he could do was to shout my name. Guru Raj, Guru Raj, Guru Raj.
han kunne gøre overhovedet, var at begynde at kalde Gurus navn.
And those dogs also slinked down and went away. Vicious dogs that were trained to kill.
Der var trænet til at dræbe.
So, after this happening, now him being a psychiatrist, he wants to know how did it happen, what force, what power was there.
Begyndte han selvfølgelig at blive nysgerrig, fordi han jo også er en psykiater og psykolog. Så begyndte han at fundere på, hvad det egentlig var for en styrke.
So I explained him what really happened.
Så forklarede han, hvad
That you being a sincere meditator
at fordi du er en oprigtig meditator,
and filled with love for me, so when you shouted my name, you brought my name to your mind.
så bragte du mig til dit sind.
And bringing my name and me to your mind, it immediately contacted the superconscious level of my mind.
Det der skete var, at i samme øjeblik han bragte mig ind i sin bevidsthed, kom han i kontakt med den superbevidste del af mit sind.
And that superconscious of my mind contacted the dogs.
Og det superbevidste plan fra mit sind kunne nå hundens eller hundenes.
And they went away. Do you see? So, this proves that there is only one consciousness.
Det betyder virkelig, at der kun findes bevidsthed.
Many people write to me of some problem. Another example.
Mennesker, som skriver omkring problemer.
And before the letter reaches me, they write to me that my problem is solved.
Og det sker mange gange, at før brevet overhovedet er nået frem til mig, har de allerede afsendt et nyt brev om, at problemet allerede er løst.
Now what has happened there is this, that as soon as I put pen to paper,
Det, der sker der, det er, at lige så snart de begynder at sætte pennen til papiret,
the mind was concentrated.
koncentreret.
And I mean, everyone knows that if you put a thought on paper, the thought is more solid, more powerful.
Når man sætter en tanke på papir, bliver tanken stærkere, mere kraftig.
So it reaches the superconscious level of my mind and bounces back to solve the problem.
Så personen når det superbevidste lag i mit sind, og bliver så returneret til personen.
So, again to repeat over and over again, there is only one consciousness.
Så for at gentage igen og igen, der findes faktisk kun én bevidsthed.
I see no difference between my consciousness and the consciousness of a cat.
Jeg ser ingen forskel mellem min bevidsthed og for eksempel bevidstheden af en kat.
Because I know that the cat, although having the totality of consciousness, still has to evolve to be able to cognize it with the conscious mind.
Jeg ved, at selvom katten har et universelt sind, så mangler den stadigvæk at blive udviklet, sådan så den også selv kan genkende og erkende det universelle sind.
Now the human being functions mostly on the conscious level,
Mennesket fungerer hovedsageligt på det bevidste plan.
which I've said many, many times, that just a small fraction of the brain and mind therefore is used.
Som jeg har sagt mange gange, er det kun en lille del af sindet og hjernens kapacitet, som i virkeligheden bliver brugt.
Now, I will give you on the blackboard at the back, as I said this morning, an illustration so you could understand it better. It is slightly technical.
På tavlen her bagved at tegne de forskellige bevidsthedslag. Det er ret teknisk udviklet.
Can I take this there? Oops. Yes, I can reach that.
Oh. Now we have to move on.
Yes. Right. You know, when I was a young boy, about 8 or 9 years ago, when I was 8 or 9 years old, a sadhu, which is a holy man, was passing the village I was in.
Så kom der en sadhu, som er en hellig mand.
So I asked this holy man, please give me a practice.
Så jeg bad den her hellige mand om.
So you know what practice he gave me? Just draw circles. Just draw circles. I thought, even at that age, it's something so foolish. But the holy man said, do this, so I was doing it. And I filled up so many pages of circles that we could plaster the walls of this whole building. The idea there was this, although I only realized this afterwards, that you as a boy, if you could draw a perfect circle, then your mind is well concentrated.
At når man er et barn, så sker det, når man begynder at tegne en perfekt cirkel, så begynder at blive koncentreret.
Yeah, so it was an exercise in developing concentration, which many people lacked.
Det var altså rent faktisk en øvelse i at udvikle koncentration,
Good. So that was by the side.
Det var simpelthen lidt uden for filmen.
Can't do a perfect circle anymore.
Fuldendte cirkler mere.
Double S, I think. Double S. Right, can you people see from there?
Maybe we should.
If you want to, just to the side. Hearing, seeing, touching, smelling. What's the fifth one is? Yeah, testing.
We'll write this down afterwards.
You can make a copy of it. Right. Fine. Now, the mind does not function in sections as I've drawn.
Det fungerer nu altså ikke i sektioner, som vi har tegnet det her.
It functions together.
Det fungerer i totalitet i helhed.
But for the purpose of illustration, I've made compartments.
Har jeg måttet opdele.
These are the qualities you have in the mind.
Disse 4 dele er de kvaliteter, I har i sindet.
And now manas is the lower mind.
Manas er den lavere del af sindet.
Manas is the lower mind governed by our 5 senses. Are you all right there? Can you see? Governed by our 5 senses, which is hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, tasting.
De 5 sanser, som er at høre, se og røre, lugte og smage.
You've got it all. So, human beings normally live on the sensual level.
De fleste mennesker lever i dag på det rent følelsesmæssige niveau.
And for scientists, they're only more concerned with what they can hear, they can see, they can touch, they can smell, they can taste.
Og videnskaben er mere bekymret omkring de 5 sanser.
Then only do they say it is real.
For ellers, hvis ikke de 5 grupper, så føler de ikke, at det er virkelig.
But that's a very small part of reality. Now, what happens is this, that after receiving the sensual input into manas,
Her er det, at når man har fået de forskellige af de 5 input i hjernen,
right, the manas refers the input to chitta.
så overfører man det, der er kommet ind af sansindtryk til chitta.
And chitta is the memory box.
Og chitta er hukommelsen.
Chitta is the memory box, which you can call subconscious.
Det er også det, som vi kalder for det underbevidste.
Which is called the subconscious, according to Western psychologists and psychiatrists.
Vesterlandske psykologer og psykiatere kalder det underbevidste.
Now, every experience a person has had
Mennesker har haft,
since he was a plant, and then since he was a stone, then to plant, then to animal, and then to man.
helt tilbage fra mennesket var sten, plante, dyr.
Even the experiences one had as a primitive man or prehistoric man,
Selv de oplevelser, man havde som primitiv menneske eller fortidsmenneske,
all those impressions are carried in this memory box.
alle disse gamle sindsindtryk ligger i denne hukommelsesboks.
So, you see a dog. Right. Manas carries this impression to the memory box. And then in the memory box there are pigeonholes
Og i hukommelsesboksen er der forskellige huller,
and picks out from the memory of a dog
og derfra hiver det så kortet ud med en oplevelse eller en erfaring omkring en hund.
then you say this is a dog. Yeah, and not a camel. Or a donkey. You see. And how do you know that? Is because the manas that receives the sensory inputs has to,
Og grunden til det er,